And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are talking about nothing but the NFL free agency. We'll be talking about all the juice and all the trades and all the signings here. One of my more favorable talk about or things to talk about here on the show. And so, before we jump into it, just want to thank the fans out there for going ahead and hitting that subscription button, and also too, just want to go ahead and thank the people out there who put sponsorship on the show. And of course, this beautiful studio right here, the podcast place where you can go ahead and be the ultimate creator that you want to be. So make sure that you go ahead and check these out in the show notes. So let's go ahead and jump into the content, guys. I'll actually be bringing up an article here via CBS and just loosely kind of going through the free agents that have signed and exactly what this means team for team. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And it's the 2024 NFL free agency tracker here, the signings. So it's just kind of going through everything from positions on down from the quarterback on. So let's go ahead and bring up the first batch of free agencies, and that is going to be the quarterback play. And so Kirk Cousins is obviously number one here on the list. Looking at what the Atlanta Falcons did, I like it. The 4 years, $180 million here. You know this, being a Commanders fan, this was it was a little bittersweet because I'm like, I wish that we still had Kirk Cousins. But the one thing that I can say about Kirk Cousins is he is an excellent leader, and he is actually a dog at the QB position. Here's a guy that doesn't necessarily miss a whole bunch of games. It was kind of odd to see him go down on a non-contact Achilles injury. And I love what Arthur Blank has done by going out and addressing the quarterback. The only issue that I have with this is that I'm not sure that Atlanta has put enough pieces around Kirk Cousins. Now, I know that they still have the NFL draft to come up here, but I'm not sure that bringing over Rondale Moore is going to help that situation. I'm not really a fan of what they signed with Darnell Mooney from Chicago. He's not been a consistent wide receiver. And then they've already got some question marks at the other skill positions, like Kyle Pitts. He was trending towards being a top 10 tight end in this league, had the hip surgery and the knee injury and hasn't really been the same. And then the big question for Atlanta is, can Drake London become that wide receiver that he was supposed to be out of USC? I'm starting to see a guy, and not to knock this guy, but I think he compares a lot to Michael Pittman Jr., a guy that needs a lot of complementary pieces around him. And I'm talking about the number one wide receiver for Indianapolis, who just resigned as well. So that's really the biggest thing that I see out of this Atlanta signing with Kirk Cousins. But I like it overall, them being aggressive. They still possibly can go out there and get a wide receiver, and I think a rich wide receiver draft class this year. Next up, Baker Mayfield. Me and Devontae, the real Hogan, had talked about this guy. He raves about him. He got me onto him. And I think that Baker Mayfield definitely deserved this deal. I mean, he got 3 years, $100 million. I think it was absolutely worth it. Finding out that he's actually went ahead and he wants to make this his permanent home, I think this should be a permanent stop for him. I believe that Coach Todd Boyles loves this guy. And I think it keeps the tradition going for the Buccaneers that they will again reach the postseason, even though this division got a lot better. We just talked about Kirk Cousins being signed over here, but they also brought Mike Evans back too as well. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But I think now the real question for Baker Mayfield is, now that he's past the show me deal, okay, and he has an elite wide receiver to go along with him that actually likes him, okay, not talking about that drama that happened with Odell Beckham Jr. in Cleveland. I'm talking about a guy that really believes in him, and he's also got Chris Godwin to go along with that. Can they find a running back now that is going to take some pressure off of Baker Mayfield? Remember, when he had actually taken the Cleveland Browns pretty far in the playoffs, he had an excellent running game with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubbs, and I'm looking to see, can the Bucs bring a running back into the fold somehow in free agency? I know they missed on a bunch of those guys. We'll talk about that, but I do like that signing with the Buccaneers. Next up, Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was talking to Solomon here a little bit in the green room, and we think that that was an absolute steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And let me say this is probably the best quarterback that has come through the doors since Ben Roethlisberger. And this is a franchise that has always had good quarterback play, even dating back to Terry Bradshaw. So I feel like I'm dating myself. But point being, this is a huge signing for Pittsburgh, and I think that Pittsburgh knows that for their franchise to operate, they've always had a good defense, which they have yet again, but They have always had great quarterback play, and this was huge for them. Look, they are not even picking up the bill here at this point in time. I mean, for this one-year deal, 1.2 million, it's a steal because the Denver Broncos are essentially paying the tab on this guy. So this was a great pickup, along with what they got with Justin Fields just about a day ago. This news has just broke where Justin Fields is coming over, and Justin Fields is coming over for maybe it looks like anywhere from a 4 to a 6 round pick, depending on his play. I think it has something to do with how many games he plays, and that's going to turn into, what the pick materializes into. So either way, Pittsburgh is in the best position to me as a free agent or free agency in what they did. They also went out and picked up Patrick Queen from the Ravens. So defensively, they got better, but this is a great signing. Next up, Gardner Minshew to the Raiders. Terrific pickup, I think, for Coach Pierce. I think he's moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not sure that they're necessarily sold on the rookie quarterback that they had last season. And ultimately speaking, you have one of the best wide receivers in the game in Devontae Adams. You need somebody that can win in this league and win now. Now, this doesn't say that the Raiders aren't going to go out and find them a guy in the draft. They absolutely can do that, and they still can go out there and get them a veteran backup to go alongside of Gardner Minshew. But what I saw with what he did with the Colts last season, I think it showed you the maturity that he had. It also lets you know that he's learned a bit since he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. And so you're hoping as a Raiders faithful that this guy is going to turn it around for you, because I certainly think that Coach Pierce has turned around the culture there. Defensively, they have gotten better. I love the signing that they got over from Miami with Wilkerson. Like, this is going to be a force on the defensive end, and they've already said that they want to instill the Patrick Mahomes rules, a lot like Detroit issued out to Michael Jordan in the Jordan rules. So I'm looking to see that physicality for next season as well. Next up, another signing that I like here. I love Jameis Winston to the Cleveland Browns. I love this for a lot of different reasons, because I don't think Deshaun Watson is the same quarterback that he once was before. And I think between DTR, which is a guy that they got last year out of UCLA, watched a lot of his games out here, and then also too with Jameis Winston, who in a lot of ways should still be the Saints quarterback. I mean, I think he got the short end of the stick there. I believe that it was a steal that Derek Carr went over there and got that money like that, and he still didn't produce at a high level. Jameis Winston should be the starter. I hope that he goes out here to Cleveland and he does well. Next up, Sam Donald, okay, to the Minnesota Vikings. This is interesting because, look, you have Justin Jefferson. He's in his walk year, okay? And I can't see him wanting to stay with Minnesota if you don't have a legit quarterback. Not to take anything away from Sam Darnold, but he's not the number one quarterback that he was drafted as coming out of USC. And I'm not sure that he's necessarily going to show that with Minnesota. They got a ton weaker on the defensive end. I do like the Aaron Jones signing out of Green Bay. But at the end of the day, I think that this is going to be a rebuild process, and I expect for Minnesota to struggle. And I'm not sure that Sam Darnold is going to be the answer for them. Um, Now moving forward, kind of scrolling down a little bit, I know that we had the Sam Howell, just lastly on the Sam Howell deal to the Seahawks. Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly touch on this, being a Commanders fan. Um, it's interesting to me because Sam Howell moving over to Seattle, he's probably going to challenge Geno Smith. And I think that a lot of people can look at this Washington deal and say that they did a great job because they got a lot of value from a draft standpoint, as far as picks and things like that. But it puts you into question with what the franchise is really going to do at number 2 in the draft. Who is the quarterback of the future? I know that they've signed Marcus Mariota, which I didn't touch on, but it looks like he's going to be initially the starter until they bring this rookie or whoever they're bringing in up to speed. But I like what Seattle was able to get here with Sam Howell, because I think that Sam Howell can play football in the National Football League. And I think you're going to see that now that he's out of a dysfunctional franchise, that perhaps Seattle has got a quarterback that can kind of go along in the timeline with their splendid wide receiver core. So I just wanted to give Sam Howell his flowers. Next up, the running back market. I think the running back market was probably it probably was the best running back market of all of NFL free agency. And I will say this, Last season, these guys got absolutely just taken advantage of. I mean, I think that these guys should have been paid top dollar money. I mean, it was ridiculous for a lot of these guys to have to play on the franchise tag and not being valued by their franchise. And so, starting with Saquon Barkley, I think that this was a huge signing for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know that they're looking at this being possibly a tampered situation along with the Kirk Cousins situation, but who cares? He needed to go to a place where he's wanted, and he also needed to go to a place where he has a quarterback for crying out loud. Because Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback, and for Saquon Barkley to be great, he's not just a runner; he also is a terrific pass catcher. You need to have somebody to get him the ball. I think with Jalen Hurts here, it is certainly going to be a dynamic that is going to be scary in the NFC East. And I think for the first time in a long time, the Eagles have an actual bell cow running back. I don't think that they've had an actual bell call running back since, I don't know, Brian Westbrook was there. And this is back when, a long time ago when they first made their Super Bowl appearance with Donovan McNabb there. And they had Coach Andy Reid back in the day. So you had to go back and look at that. But he's probably like one of their best bell cow running backs. So to get Saquon Barkley here, I think was huge. Um, Josh Jacobs to Green Bay, I don't necessarily like that in a 4-year, $48 million deal. I think Aaron Jones had probably the best 5 weeks, maybe of any NFL player as far as at the running back position. You saw he slaughtered San Francisco. He absolutely slaughtered Dallas in the playoffs. Like this guy was deserving of a better exit from Green Bay. I think he's certainly a better running back than Josh Jacobs. And so great that he got the money, but I don't know if that's going to be a great fit with Jordan Love. So Tony Pollard is a guy that I am not sold on. I think that the Tennessee Titans got a guy, that he just hasn't proven himself. 3 years, 24 million. I get it. It's a little bit younger than obviously King Henry. I understand it. They're wanting a new regime to go along with Will Levis, but I just think that they could have did a lot better at the running back position. So, hey, he got his money. Austin Eckler to the Washington Commanders. Uh, Probably about 4 or 5 seasons ago, I would have loved this. But I understand what Coach Dan Quinn is doing. He's trying to build a winning culture. The fact of the matter is that most of the free agents that Washington have signed have probably won more bigger games in the NFL than most players that have been on the roster for the last 5 to 6 years. And that's how sad Washington is. And so I think that for the first time, we have some stability at the running back position and in a skill position that they can say, hey, we can actually go to a guy and say he's an actual leader. So I think that that's going to bring a presence to the locker room. And the one thing I do like about Austin Eckler is he's a terrific pass catching running back as well. So even if his time of running the football for 25 to 30 times a game has kind of passed, I think I can still count on him going out there and being a pass catcher and being effective. So I will give him that. DeAndre Swift to the Chicago Bears, love it. Okay. For the first time, the Chicago Bears are signifying that they want to win football games in the National Football League. And with Justin Fields moving on, this is the first time that I can say they can actually legitimately have a quarter or running back that actually is significant and can run the ball. So they're upping the position players around the quarterback for the first time. They didn't do that with Mitchell Trubisky, and they sure as heck didn't do that with Justin Fields. So we'll talk a little bit about what they did with Keenan Allen and that trade that goes along with DJ Moore and what they did last season. Quietly, the Chicago Bears are, to me, they have no excuses not to be a playoff team, period. Okay. Now, I know they're going to take a rookie quarterback, but they should have a veteran in place as well that they could actually go ahead and take the reins and be a playoff team, in my opinion, with the skills that they've upgraded in the free agency. Next up, you have J.K. Dobbins, who I don't think is going to sign a deal, a bit injury prone for the Ravens. Devin Singletary, I love the year that he had with the Texans. I think it's a short-term fix for the New York Giants. You'll notice that it's 3 years, $16.5 million. I think that they just probably didn't want to pay Saquon Barkley, and they just got the cheapest option. I think that that's what they did here. Gus Edwards to the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not really sure that this is going to be a great fit. And with Jim Harbaugh coming into the NFL, They're going to play a lot like what the San Francisco 49ers are now, okay? Because that's what he came from. When he was in the NFL, he pretty much built up the San Francisco 49ers. He had Kaepernick. He had a strong running game with Frank Gore, and I think that that's what he was thinking with Gus Edwards. He wants to go with a bigger back like this. Now, do I think he's going to be the bell cow back that he's looking for? I think he's going to have to pair him with somebody, but we'll see what happens because the Chargers have absolutely cleaned house. AJ Dillon has re-signed with the Green Bay Packers. I think he's clearly going to be the number two here. Zach Moss had a monster year with the Colts over to the Cincinnati Bengals, in which they traded off Joe Mixon. So I think that that's something that should definitely be talked about. I thought that Joe Mixon was a terrific pickup for the Texans. I think that you're adding a guy that has been to the Super Bowl with the clear-cut best rookie quarterback in the draft in quite some time, honestly, because we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of the show. But with C.J. Stroud and what he's able to do, this was a huge pickup for the Texans, and I think not so much for Cincinnati. I think that Cincinnati is basically banking on the fact that they're still going to have a lot of big years with Joe Burrow to come up. Gibson to New England, not really sold on that as well. And then Clyde's Olaire to, I think, Arizona, 3 years, 8.25 million. Fresh start for him. I think it's clear that Isaiah Pacheco is the best running back in Kansas City. And I think he has a clear-cut chance to actually start again with Arizona. And so maybe it's something special for him working with a healthy Kyler Murray. So let's go on to the wide receivers and see what we got here. So T. Higgins franchise tagged. I know a lot of teams are still wanting to get their hands on him. So hopefully Cincinnati maybe is listening to T. Higgins possibly exiting here. But he's a terrific wide receiver. Michael Pittman, we led in the show with him re-signing with the Colts. Mike Evans, we talked about how he's with the Bucks. Calvin Ridley got big money here for the Titans. Paired up with DeAndre Hopkins, maybe this is a good situation. We're going to find out how good Will Levis is. Um, Gabe Davis to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not in love with it. 3 years, $39 million, and he never really showed consistency when he's with the Buffalo Bills. This is his chance. I think this is his chance to show that he can be a clear-cut number one. I think with all the injuries that the Jacksonville Jaguars had, he's the best wide receiver that they have. And so we're going to find out just how good Gabe Davis is. Odell Beckham, Tyler Boyd still don't have a home. Curtis Samuel had a resurgent year going back with the Buffalo Bills. Is he going to help Stephon Diggs? I don't even know if Stephon Diggs is going to be there. He doesn't seem very happy. So Curtis Samuel might be their number one. Kendrick Bourse back to the New England Patriots. DJ Shark Jr., excuse me. Surprised he doesn't have a home. Michael Thompson, guys, he only played in, I believe, 30 to 40 games in like 5 seasons or something like that. It was something crazy. But with all the injuries that Michael Thompson had, it was like he had to go. So, I mean, that frees up the Saints from a contract that just definitely never worked out. Um, kind of moving forward, just kind of looking through here, guys. I mean, there wasn't really anything else that really stood out to me other than I will say this, and it's not up there, but the Jerry Jeudy to the Cleveland Browns. I think that that has the potential to be some interesting news for us moving into the next NFL season because now we get a chance to see is Jerry Jeudy as good as he was supposed to be out of Alabama. He's playing with an elite tight end. He's playing with his best running game that he's ever played with since leaving Alabama. And I think that you can honestly say he's getting an upgrade at the quarterback position no matter who's there. And not to take anything away from Russell Wilson, but you were starting to see that a little bit. So they restructured the contract, but I think that this is something that is noteworthy that we should actually take a look at. And then lastly, with the wide receivers, Keenan Allen stepping over to the Chicago Bears. He said that he wasn't taking a pay cut. I don't blame him. He's coming off his best year as a wide receiver, shouldn't take a pay cut. He is now paired with DJ Moore, 2,000-yard receivers. Whoever is playing quarterback has no excuse, okay? So for the Chicago Bears, I'm going to say this loud and clear. You've traded Justin Fields away. You're basically saying that Caleb Williams is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. He told you, how bad do you want to win? You're showing him how bad you want to win. Now I got to see that from Caleb Williams. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't see that at USC. All right. I'll just put that out there. He's good, but he's not that good. And I think you're going to find out about that. And I will say this about the quarterback class that Justin Fields was in. Justin Fields traded. Mac Jones traded. We're questioning whether Trevor Lawrence is a number one quarterback with the Jags after his injuries. And then also now you have Zach Wilson in, Zach Wilson, who is in New York, who is probably going to be traded or let go. So I'm just saying, you're sold on quarterbacks. Just think twice about that. All right, guys. So the tight end market, and the tight end market to me was weak for the most part. You had Dalton Schultz, who is with the Texans. I think that he definitely deserved his money, played very well. This is one of those veteran guys that you have to kind of bring back, especially for CJ Stroud. I think he played so well. He's a perfect safety blanket for him. Noah Fant to the Seattle Seahawks. I like it. But how about Jared Everett to the Chicago Bears? Another reason why I think the Bears are a playoff team and they have no excuses. You have one of the more better vertical tight ends in the NFL. Look at his body of work that he did with the Chargers. Absolutely stretched the field. You have that to go with Cole Clement, I think his name is, that's out of Notre Dame that the Bears have as well. Sorry if I butchered his name, guys. But you have two elite tight ends here with the Bears as well. The Bears have absolutely no excuse. Logan Thomas, a guy that had a pretty decent year. The thing about him was injuries. He's still out there as a free agent. I think that he's possibly a good pickup for you. Jonah Smith over to the Miami Dolphins. He was actually listed as a breakout tight end about 3 years ago, and he did have a breakout year for the Titans. But since then, has kind of been on a little bit of a downturn. I think he's playing with his best quarterback now with Tua. So I want to see what happens here. The offensive tackles, the only thing that I want to point out here is the Tyron Smith signing. Okay, the one-year deal is huge for the New York Jets because you're talking about he's protecting Aaron Rodgers, who we know is probably a Hall of Fame quarterback, who we know if he's out there, the Jets are a different football team, period. So I want to see now, does he have enough in the tank to protect this Hall of Fame quarterback and also keep Breece Hall, a great running back, on schedule? Is he the key now and the last piece to keep this guy upright to the New York Jets finally being a playoff team? I think that is noteworthy. Excuse me. And the one thing that I will say about the offensive linemen here is that the offensive linemen are going to be rich in this NFL draft. I think for the first time in a long time, you might see more than 5 linemen drafted in the first round. Excuse me, guys. So be looking for that. So next up, guys, the next position that we have is going to be, obviously, I think that co-lines with the centers, but I will say this quickly with the Washington Commanders. All right, the signing here that they have at center, 3 years, $29.25 million here. So here's a guy that Coach Quinn knows he's sliding over, and he continues to poach players from Dallas to come on over. But this is going to be critical because I just talked about how they're essentially going to go with a young quarterback. They need somebody, and your center is going to be basically your quarterback on the offensive line. You need somebody that you can trust, that can get into different protections and things like that. So I will say I like that with the Commanders. I like what they did. The guard play, we can kind of slide by that as well. I think that is, something that, again, kind of coincides a little bit more with what we were talking about with the offensive linemen. More so I want to slide into a little bit now with the defensive line. So the first signing you're going to see is Chris Jones. I love the fact that Kansas City brought back their guy. Okay, 5 years, $158.75 million. And the one thing we're not talking about is that Patrick Mahomes went ahead and restructured his deal, right? And also, I will say this is not on the list. They did go out and get Marquise Hollywood Brown to go over as a wide receiver. All right, I love that. Now, there's one caveat that I will say about this with Kansas City. Now that they've restructured the deal, now that they've actually went ahead and re-signed some of their defensive players, in my opinion, I'm throwing this out there, I think that they can go out and get Mike Williams, who was cut by the Chargers, and I think it would be an excellent fit. What better way to stick it to the Chargers twice a year than signing with your rivals and going out there and getting a Super Bowl ring? So I'm just throwing that out there into the atmosphere. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs should go out there and get Mike Williams, who was cut and let go by the Chargers. Next up, kind of looking at some more signings. We talked about Christian Wilkerson and how he's going to go over to the Las Vegas Raiders. I love that to go along with was it Max Crosby over there on the defensive end of the ball. So Pierce is quietly building an identity with the Raiders. I love that a lot. We talked a little bit about Patrick Queen and that signing. I know he's not on the defensive line, but he kind of coincides a lot with this particular segment. Um, Fletcher Cox retiring, and also too, you have Aaron Donald retiring as well. And so that was huge as well. Those are two goats that I want to kind of throw out there and give them their flowers, both of which ultimate professionals. And I think that the league is dearly going to miss them for sure. Um, and just kind of moving forward, guys, I thought that the 49ers maybe lost out a little bit too. They've had to cut one of their big defensive players. Defensive linemen, I think you're still going to be able to find some rich defensive linemen in this draft. And I think also, too, the linebacker play and edge rushers are going to be there as well. So I think that that's why you see a lot of names out here that are still not signed, because I think that that's just the bottom line. Edge rushers, I love what the Houston Texans did. Okay, they went out there and they got Danielle Hunter over from Minnesota. I love this aspect. I think that the defense was already good with Will Anderson Jr., who was a standout as a rookie. I mean, what is there not to like about the Texans and what Coach Ryan's is doing? Like, I love what they are building over there. This is going to be a solid team, like scary, scary solid team. Um, you know, Desarius Smith coming back to the Cleveland Browns, I get it. 2 years, 23.5 million. It was a defense that was a terror. They did get eliminated and they basically got torn apart by the Texans, but I think that they're going to be a lot better here in year two. Um, you have Dorrance Armstrong coming over to the Commanders. Here's a guy that, again, Coach Quinn knows him. 3 years, 33 million, kind of setting the culture here. One guy that's not talked about on this list is Bobby Wagner coming over to Washington as well. Talented linebacker that won championships with Seattle, a culture guy for Dan Quinn. So are we going to give up 45 points again? The Commanders, I don't know. I'm not putting it past them. I still got to see it to believe it. But again, guys, you're seeing a lot of names on this free agent list that have not been signed. And I think it's because a lot is to be desired in the NFL draft to come up. So, um, next up, guys, kind of just going through the linebacker class. Patrick Queen, we talked about it at the top. I love what the Steelers did here. Um, just talked about what the Washington Commanders did. Um, I love what they just picked up here in Frankie. 3 years, 31 million. Here's another guy that I think Coach Quinn knows as well. I think he's coming over from Dallas. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's another guy that Coach Quinn has coached up as well. So he wanted to go ahead and address the middle of the defense here. So I like what he's done there. He's going to have to obviously go out and find some secondary help. That's another topic here. So but again, that's really, I think, some of the things that have come off here. I like Philadelphia and like what they did with Devin White coming over to the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a guy coming over from the Bucks. I think that that's going to help them out a lot. We were talking about that. Shaquille Leonard, I think at the time wasn't signed. I got to go back and check here. I don't know if he got signed or not, but I think he's still a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. But here's a guy that I think should be signed. Um, Jordan Hicks to the Cleveland Browns. I kind of like that one a lot too as well. But for the most part, guys, I think that that might just about be it here for the free agent list. And so just to kind of wrap it up, one more topic that we have is the cornerback. So I like that Stephen Gilmore is still out there. So maybe that's a guy that maybe I think the Commanders should go out here and get. Um, L'Jarius Sneed franchise tag. I thought that was interesting. He had probably one of his best years as a pro, even though he's penalty prone, but he found a way to lock up in the playoffs. So, maybe this is one of those things where Kansas City wants to see him show me one more year, and then they'll go ahead and pay him the big money. Again, like Chris Jones, I'm not sure about that, but there's some guys out here that I think certainly could be had. Um, I want to say that Miami actually has a guy that's out there that they let go that I can't think of right now. I hate to give you guys a guesstimation, and I can't even think of who it is. It'll come to me probably at the end of the show. I'll probably have to put it in the show notes, guys. But Miami has a guy out there that they let go that I think is going to be a good pickup for somebody too in the cornerback position slash safety position. So moving forward, kind of going up the ladder, I do see the safeties are next on the list here. So with the safeties, I love that Winfield's coming back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got Duggar back over to the Patriots. Um, Xavier McKinney, a guy that's going over to the Green Bay Packers. I love that signing. Um, Kind of going down a little bit. Nothing that I really see that kind of jumps out at me other than those signings there. I like the Jordan Poyer over to the Miami Dolphins. That's a guy that actually played over for the Bills. You still have Terrell Edmonds is out there. He played for the Bills. So the Bills pretty much let go a lot of salary here. Micah Hyde is still out there. He's available. So those are just some players that I think you can go out there and get. CJ Gardner coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles after spending some time with the Detroit Lions. Certainly, I think that that was a good pickup for the Eagles, considering that they couldn't guard a blade of grass. But with that being said, guys, that is the free agency show. And, just as a wrap up here, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are the winners here in free agency. Washington, my Commanders, I think the jury is still out there. I want to see what they're going to do now that they brought veteran presences over here. I love the fact that they didn't make a huge splash in free agency by going out here and getting this free agent for a lot of money and then not having spending for anything else. But now I want to see what they're going to do in the draft. And I just want to put this out there, guys. Like, for as good as the free agent class has been and then the trades and all that stuff like that, keep in mind that we have an even better draft class coming up. Like I said, offensive linemen are going to be at a premium. A lot of these guys can run, and they also, showed that they have great footwork. The hip movement is fluent as well. Like, I think you're going to get franchise linemen in this draft that really could be out there for you for the next 10 to 12 seasons that could actually really open up your running game and also to keep your QBs healthy as well. So I want to put that out there from a wide receiver standpoint, guys. There was probably like maybe 5 to 10 wide receivers that ran under 4.4. So there's going to be a lot of playmakers out there that you can absolutely get in the later draft class or in the later rounds of the draft, excuse me, and you could actually help your franchise there. From the quarterback standpoint, I just talked about Justin Fields and this class. So for the people out there that think that the quarterback is going to change your franchise, I'm not going to say that that's necessarily the truth, guys. Quarterback is one of the hardest positions to play in the National Football League. You're seeing that a lot of these quarterbacks that were picked number one were traded for pennies on a dollar, really. I mean, they were traded for like fourth and sixth round picks, so they're not even getting the value that you thought you would get out of them. So that's one thing to keep in mind here for Drake May, for Jaden McDaniels, for Michael Penix, and then for Caleb Williams. All these guys that are coming out this year, quarterback is not the easiest position to play in the National Football League. Defensively, I feel like you can always go out there and get you a good edge rusher, linebacker, and it doesn't always have to be in the first round. I think you're going to find a lot of guys that were overlooked, a lot of guys that a lot of people aren't talking about in the combine that can actually go out here and help your football team. So, with that being said, that is today's show. I want to thank the audience out there for going ahead and subscribing. Make sure that you go ahead and hit that notification bell, and you will stay up to date with all the news here in all of sports. Got some shows coming up here about the NBA, guys, so you will be able to go ahead and check out what's going on with the NBA with 16 to 17 games left in that. Want to thank Spotify, where you can actually find us there. You can also find us on YouTube as well, guys. And then also, too, this very beautiful studio that I'm doing the show at, the podcast place. It is your destination here for ultimate creation. If you're a creator, you want to get out there, you want to have this beautiful setup, then this is a place that you want to definitely check out, guys. And so this is Rico. This is Real Talk Sports. I'll be back with the next show. I'll see you guys. Peace. See you guys on the next one.